Ian Watkins is actually the real name of former chap Ponce H from Steps. Although of the two, it still takes H longer to sign an autograph.
Welcome to WatchMojo UK, and today we're counting down our picks for the times karma caught up to dreadful individuals.
When Brady and Hindley were arrested, they said nothing, challenging detectives to prove their guilt.
Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
Number 20. Peter Mandelson.
Calls for Lord Mandelson to forfeit his peerage after the latest claims over his links to Jeffrey Epstein.
Labour politician Peter Mandelson was one of the UK's most powerful figures for years. For a few months in Keir Starmer's government, he was British ambassador to the United States. This led to Starmer having to apologise profusely when it turned out Mandelson was involved with prolific criminal Jeffrey Epstein.
I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you. Sorry that so many people with power failed you. Sorry for having believed Mandelson's lies and appointed him.
They weren't just passing acquaintances. The pair had gotten up to a bunch of illicit activities, the extent of which is yet to be fully revealed.
The world and his wife knew that Peter Mandelson was going to be a very high-risk appointment. He had history, he had form, this is in his DNA, he does this stuff.
Mandelson lost all respect, alongside leaving the Labour Party and politics entirely. Now a criminal investigation has been launched, so the worst is likely ahead for Mandelson.
It was those swanky connections that got him to the top, but also brought him down. Last year, embarrassing emails he sent to Jeffrey Epstein were made public, and that meant Number 10 had to oust him from the ambassador's residence.
Number 19. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor.
Andrew Mountbatten Windsor appears to have knowingly shared confidential information with Jeffrey Epstein when, as Prince Andrew, he was a UK trade envoy.
The list of celebrities involved with Epstein is too long to cover, but few have provided a worse response than Andrew did. He tried explaining himself in an infamous Newsnight interview in 2019, but failed spectacularly.
This is Andrew Mountbatten Windsor in the present day, stripped of his titles and roles after revelations of his past dealings with Jeffrey Epstein.
It's easily one of the most clumsy interviews in history, with Andrew doing nothing but making it worse for himself.
Embarrassment, sir. Is Andrew resigning?
He was already under pressure about it 15 years ago, after newspaper revelations in March 2011.
He was later stripped of his royal styles and honours in 2025. Then, following the formal release of the Epstein files, Andrew was put under official investigation for misconduct in public office. He's made far too many mistakes to be able to recover his reputation at this point, and now even King Charles is aiding the police in investigating him.
He emailed Epstein a briefing he knew was confidential on investment opportunities in the reconstruction of Helmand Province, Afghanistan, funded by British government money.
Number 18. Thomas Neill Cream. Also known as the Lambeth Poisoner, this Victorian serial killer was responsible for potentially 10 deaths in total. Many of his victims were lower-class women, whom he killed in multiple countries, mainly Canada, America and the UK. These began in 1881, but that was after he'd already broken the law by performing a few dangerous and illegal abortions. His murders then continued throughout the decade until he was finally captured in 1892. This happened not long after he gave an American policeman a tour of the places he'd killed his victims, revealing an incriminating amount of details about the murders. After a short trial, he was sentenced to death. Number 17. Edward II.
I here create thee Lord High Chamberlain, Chief Secretary to the State, and me, Earl of Cornwall, King and Lord of Man.
Only a handful of English kings have been forced to abdicate, with Edward II being one of them. His reign lasted from 1307 until 1327 and was pretty disastrous. It included him becoming closely aligned with the Despencer family, who were hated by the nobility and believed the family was exploiting the king.
I will have Gaveston, and you shall know what danger it is to stand against your king!
Edward famously suffered a crushing defeat against Robert the Bruce in the First War of Scottish Independence. Edward sought to ease tensions with France, which failed so spectacularly that his wife, Isabella, Queen of France, invaded England and then forced him to abdicate. The primary Despensers were executed. Then Edward eventually died in captivity after being moved between castles in secret.
This dungeon where they keep me is the sink wherein the filth of all the castle falls. And there, in mire and puddle have I stood this 10 days' space.
Number 16. George Joseph Smith. The only positive thing to come from this Victorian was the impact he had on forensics. This is because he was one of the earliest criminals ever captured using these modern techniques. During his life, he had a total of 8 wives, but only the first marriage was legal. Smith claimed the lives of 3 of these wives after convincing them to name him in their wills. All of them were found dead in a bathtub. Analysis of the bodies and great detective work revealed the truth behind the deaths, leading Smith to be tried and given the death penalty. Number 15. Henry VIII.
Oh, I don't know, Crummers. I've only just lost my 3rd wife, Jane Seymour, and now I've got the male heir I want. I'd need a pretty good reason to marry someone else.
Well, how about to secure an alliance against the Pope?
Few kings felt more kingly than Henry VIII, famous for his 6 wives and the English Reformation. He also earned a reputation for being a pretty bloodthirsty ruler. Henry used capital punishment so liberally that his contemporaries made up some heavily exaggerated figures for how many he killed.
Ready, boys?
Oh, yeah.
No, please. The entire English Reformation depends upon this marriage, sire.
And room raid, room raid, room raid, room raid, room raid. It's me, your new husband.
Italian mathematician Girolamo Cardano, who never visited England, claimed he killed 72,000 in total, over 2,000 a year. In reality, historians believe this is roughly 3 to 4 times higher than the real number, but either way, it's a staggering figure. In his final years, Henry suffered from a plethora of health issues and eventually died aged 55 after years of mental and physical deterioration.
I mean, your legs are thinner, your belly is much fatter now, and your...
Do you like your head where it is, Crummers?
Yes.
Good.
Number 14. John Christie. In the 40s and 50s, this horrific individual killed at least 8 people. They were all murdered in his home at 10 Rillington Place, London. To hide his crime, he stashed them around his abode, hiding 3 behind wallpaper, 2 more in his garden, and then his wife under the floorboards. This was all discovered after he moved out. Originally, Christie's neighbour, Timothy Evans, was found guilty of murdering his own wife and unborn child. After a botched police investigation, with help from Christie, he was executed in 1950, a failure influential in abolishing capital punishment. 3 years later, Christie was found responsible, but that was after he claimed 4 more lives since Evans' death. In the end, he too was hanged for his atrocities. Number 13. Oswald Mosley and Diana Mitford.
Sir Oswald Mosley, welcome to a special Today programme. When I say welcome, you know and I know that throughout London, a great many Jewish viewers will not welcome your presence on this programme. Why should any Jewish person now watch you and listen to you?
The British Union of Fascists was created by Mosley in 1932, which he led until it was forcibly disbanded in 1940. Mosley hoped Britain could ally itself with prominent fascists like Mussolini and Hitler. He even got married at the home of Goebbels, making Hitler the guest of honour.
He wanted to unite the Germans in Eastern Europe, and I did not want to intervene in a world war to stop him doing it. I thought a war between Germany and Russia was better than a war between Germany and Britain.
Early in the war, Mosley wanted Britain to accept Germany's peace offer, so a couple of weeks after Churchill took charge, Mosley and his wife were deemed too dangerous, so the pair were locked up. They remained behind bars until 1943, then he was moved to house arrest. After the war, he relocated abroad as he felt his reputation was tarnished from being aligned with Britain's enemies.
Sir Oswald, do you now, looking back with the hindsight and knowledge of history, blame the Jews or Hitler for the Second World War?
I blame both.
Number 12. Peter Sutcliffe.
In the 70s, the Yorkshire Ripper terrorised the north of England Leeds and surrounding areas were places of fear, while this maniac was on the rampage.
Peter Sutcliffe was the serial killer who seemed unstoppable.
Also known as the Yorkshire Ripper, Sutcliffe was as bloody as his name suggests. Between 1975 and 1980, he killed at least 13 people, plus he made numerous attempts to claim other lives. Before he was finally arrested, he'd been interviewed 9 times by police in total.
When he does it once, he is now acting out what he had fantasized about for so many years, and it becomes so pleasurable to him. There's a compulsion to do it again. It's compulsive and repetitive, and he's driven to do it.
They eventually caught him after he was spotted driving with fake number plates. His life in prison was as unpleasant as you can expect, with him being assaulted on multiple occasions.
You know, he's where he is, and he deserves to be where he is until his dying day. I think he's mad and bad, all rolled into one.
One instance left him without sight in one eye. Sutcliffe eventually died of natural causes in 2020, aged 74, meaning he spent more of his life incarcerated than he did free.
Whatever Sutcliffe's reasons for his murderous rampage, for some, the devastating impact of his crimes remains evident to this day.
Number 11, Ian Watkins.
Singer Ian Watkins, who was jailed for child sex offences, has been killed in an attack in prison. The former Lost Prophets singer, who was convicted in 2013, was attacked in Wakefield prison this morning.
During the 2000s, the Lost Prophets were a fairly popular Welsh rock band. At their core was founding member Ian Watkins, who would also be responsible for their downfall. In 2012, he was charged with multiple indecent offences against minors.
Now, it was 2013 that Ian Watkins, the former Lost Prophets singer, was sentenced for a string of child sex offences, 13 offences.
The band broke up within a year, and Watkins was sentenced to 29 years imprisonment. His time in prison was full of problems, as is often the case for people with convictions like his. In 2023, he was taken hostage and stabbed, which damaged both his spine and brain. 2 years later, he was stabbed again, but this time it was fatal.
But we understand this is not the first time he's been attacked. He was stabbed back in 2023, not fatally, and clearly that has changed this time.
Number 10, Bloody Mary. Properly known as Mary Tudor, in 1553, she became England's first Queen Regnant. As her nickname suggests, she wasn't particularly a role model for women of the time.
Britain was now a Catholic country and everyone had to obey that. And if you did not obey that, you would be punished.
She burned hundreds of her religious opponents alive in her efforts to undo her father's move away from Catholicism as part of the English Reformation.
And over a few years, 287 men, women and children were burned.
In the end, she grew ill from either ovarian cysts or uterine cancer. This wouldn't have been a surprise, as she suffered from illnesses of the sort from youth. Her final few months were likely excruciating, as she had frequent fevers, headaches, and even lost her vision temporarily. In the end, she died without a child, making Elizabeth Queen, who decided to undo all of her religious policies. Number 9. Hawley Harvey Crippen. Thankfully, execution is no longer a legal punishment in the UK. It was, however, in the early 20th century, and Crippen was one of many criminals who were hanged. Crippen was also the first criminal captured using wireless telegraphy. In 1910, he disappeared after burying his wife's corpse in his basement. Crippen was sailing across the Atlantic with his disguised mistress when he was caught. The ship's captain found him suspicious, so he telegraphed Scotland Yard, who hopped on a ship and quickly caught up with them.
Crippen glanced at the warrant and muttered, "Murder and mutilation. Oh God," as he was handcuffed.
Crippen and his accomplice Ethel Leneve were arrested and then faced trial soon after. Number 8. Oliver Cromwell. One of the most influential figures in UK history was, easily, Oliver Cromwell. He was the figurehead of the Parliamentarian Army during the English Civil War, a group who ended up overthrowing the monarchy. The executed king was replaced by Cromwell in his role as the Lord Protector. What's the difference between Lord Protector and King? The name, mostly. Cromwell was known for his exceeding cruelty as a military leader, particularly against Ireland. In the end, he died after, it is believed, struggling with kidney stones and malaria.
It was an ignominious end for a man who'd wanted to create God's kingdom on earth.
Initially, they gave him a grand funeral, as was traditional for monarchs. After the restoration of the monarchy, though, they posthumously executed him, then displayed his head at Westminster. It then exchanged hands for years until it eventually got buried in 1960. Number 7. Steve Merik, also known as Michael Willis. This man was jailed for 18 months after it was discovered he was in possession of indecent imagery of minors. In the 70s, he was BBC Radio 1's DJ Steve Merik, reportedly being associated with the now notorious Jimmy Savile. He was first jailed in 2020 after a police raid on his yacht. He had also previously worked as a college lecturer, school governor, and even stood in the 2010 election as a Liberal Democrat. Well, he was jailed for a while, then changed his name to David Evans. In February 2025, he was found dead after drowning in the River Dart in Devon. Number 6. King Charles I. Before Cromwell's terrible reign, we had Charles I's appalling one. He was a staunch believer in the divine right of kings, meaning he wanted absolute power and would dissolve Parliament when he didn't get it. This motivated Parliament to revolt, kick-starting the English civil wars. Charles lost the first phase by 1645, then fled to Scotland. The Scots handed him over to the English, where he refused his opponent's demands.
This court impeaches you as a tyrant, traitor, murderer, and public enemy to the Commonwealth of England.
2 years later, he fled again, was then re-imprisoned, and was eventually executed in 1649. Ironically, the charge was high treason, despite his being the king. He's the only British monarch ever executed, unless you count Cromwell, who was executed after dying, impressively.
Red! It is red blood, like our own.
Number 5. King Richard III. The death of King Richard III signalled the end of the Middle Ages in England. He was one of the leading figures of the War of the Roses, fought between the houses of Lancaster and York for the English throne. Richard was the last of the House of York to sit on the throne, reigning from 1483 to 85. He wasn't a particularly pleasant guy, famous for imprisoning Edward V and his younger brother in the Tower of London. No one knows what happened to them, but the leading theory is that they were murdered.
It was here in the Midlands, on the battlefield at Bosworth during the War of the Roses, that he fell. The hunchback so-called villain king was cut down on the pointy end of his successor's sword.
Richard eventually died at the Battle of Bosworth Field, where he was buried. His remains were eventually discovered under a car park in Leicester in 2012.
The position of the spine in the grave was interesting. There was a very noticeable curve in it, and that's not something that can occur just by accident. That's not something that can happen just by squashing the skeleton into the grave.
Number 4. Robert Maxwell.
Was a little spoiled. I think I could see that.
The father of notorious criminal Ghislaine Maxwell was a long way away from being someone to look up to. Some sources claim he was the one who introduced Ghislaine to Jeffrey Epstein. Maxwell was a wealthy businessman and briefly a Labour MP in the 60s. Towards the end of the century, it turned out he had embezzled millions from his company's pension funds. Part of this theft ended up being repaid by the government. This was all revealed after he fell off his yacht in 1991 and died from drowning.
A body has been found in the sea off the Canaries. It would appear very much as if it is that of our father.
Justice was never served to Maxwell for his crimes, but his publishing empire collapsed in the 90s, and his sons filed for bankruptcy in 1995.
Now his sons are trying to unravel the web of financial affairs the tycoon left behind.
Number 3. King John.
It was generally believed that John drowned him, which was the wrong way to solve the problem.
The Angevin Empire was a group of territories owned by the House of Plantagenet during the end of the High Middle Ages. It comprised of most of France, England, then parts of Wales and Ireland. King John ruled the empire from 1199 until 1216, and was responsible for losing it.
Never again will they tell me, the king, what I can and cannot do.
At the end of his reign, the barons revolted and forced him to sign the Magna Carta, limiting the monarch's power. He wasn't that eager to sign it, and died of dysentery a few months later. Hilariously, he was portrayed as the Cowardly Lion Prince in Disney's Robin Hood. Number 2. Ian Brady. Between 1963 and 65, Ian Brady and Myra Hindley murdered multiple children in Saddleworth Moor near Manchester.
Outwardly a normal couple,
they became serial killers.
The pair ended up getting life sentences for their crimes, only leaving to help search for the victims they hadn't found. Hindley died after 36 years behind bars in 2002. Brady, on the other hand, was diagnosed as a psychopath in the 80s. He asked never to be released, eventually becoming one of England's longest-serving prisoners. Supposedly, his conditions were terrible, with staff attacking him and force-feeding him while he was on hunger strike. Eventually, in 2017, he died of pulmonary disease after years of trying to starve himself to death.
Ian Brady now takes to his grave the truth about Keith Bennett's whereabouts.
Number 1. Guy Fawkes.
Surrounded by Catholicism from his youngest days, it is not surprising that by the age of 20, Fawkes was an ardent and committed Catholic.
Few schemers have had as much impact on British history as Guy Fawkes. He was part of a Catholic plot to blow up the House of Lords, funneling barrels of gunpowder into their basement. Interestingly, it's a myth that he was the movement's leader. Fawkes was simply the guy they found in the basement at the time. Fawkes and friends hoped to put a Catholic king on the throne, but it all fell apart when someone sent a letter telling one of the lords to stay home. Fawkes was then sentenced to be hanged, drawn and quartered, one of the most brutal punishments imaginable. Fawkes only got 1/3 of his punishment, however, opting to break his neck during the hanging.
The way, of course, we've continued to celebrate the defeat of the gunpowder plot with Bonfire Night and burning of Guy Fawkes.
Do you agree with our picks, or is there someone you think should or shouldn't be on our list? Let us know in the comments below.